Sometimes God creates people for sole purposes. I don't have a lot of talents, but there's one thing I can do very well, and that is use common sense. We're all created by God. We're all beautiful people. I don't care what your skin color is. God made it. And for years and years and years, I've watched people argue over skin color. Yours is too dark. Yours is too light. And I always thought to myself, hey, we're all made by God. At what point do we start to understand that? And that's what drives this whole concept. We need to love each other. Love covers a multitude of sins. That was like the last commandment by Jesus, right? Just love each other. Because we're all God's people. We're all God's children.
Hello, I'm Ritchie Knox, and you're tuned into Virtuous Teacher. In this episode, we'll be talking about parents. How do you call them? When should you call them? That is what we'll be talking about. Before we do, check out the descriptions area for ways to connect and support me and my initiatives. I certainly do appreciate it. Now, my horror story. Let's get it out the way. Look, when I was student teaching, and if you don't know what student teaching is, it's when you're basically at the end of your program and you're about to graduate. But before you do, they want to see you actually out in the field and teaching actual classes. And on the very first day, I meet this student who is dead set on disrespecting me. I mean, his first phrases to me was, "Hey, teacher, what's your name, teacher? You can't hear me, teacher?" In a very mocking way. And I did my best to ignore the disrespect and kind of just keep going. And I had done so for the entirety of the program, right? When it came to this student, because he was a problem just about every time we were in the exact same space. Well, one Friday on my way out the building, I'm walking towards my car and he happens to call my name. "Hey, Mr. Knox, you're a blank." Calls me out my name. And I kind of shrug it off, keep on moving, head towards my car. I thought it was pretty much over, right? That Monday when I come in, I get a call and I'm asked to come down to the principal's office. And she sits me down. She says, "Mr. Knox, we have a student who says that you called him a blank." And I explained to her, I said, "Ma'am, I would never do anything like that. In fact, what he's saying I called him, he called me." For whatever reason, she did not believe anything I said. And as a result, I was removed from the school and I had to quit the program a week early. I thank God above that the individual who was over my program, he said to me exactly, "Ritchie, I don't think you would ever do anything like this, and I will not be removing you from the program." It was such a big relief for me because I thought that, 5 years of schooling was going to go down the drain. But because of that doctor, the overseer of our program, I was able to continue. All right. But I learned a very valuable lesson. And one thing I didn't share with you, on the day that I was called down to the principal's office, I made a very good decision too late. I decided to call that young man's parents because that day he had disrespected me again. So I decided for the first time out of all the moments and interactions that we had to call his parents. And when I did, I was surprised by how pleasant his parents were. I thought because his behavior was so bad that his parents would be, pretty bad as well. Well, that was very wrong. Couldn't be further from the truth. His parents were very respectful, and they said that they would address the situation. Unfortunately, I called too late. And about an hour later, I was called down to the principal's office to receive that bad news. Now, let's talk about how I would handle that situation today. From the minute he calls me out my name, I would have pulled out a pad and documented that he's mockingly calling me out of my name. And though he's not saying anything derogatory, you can't really deny energy, can you? Like, energy doesn't lie. I felt his energy. His energy was negative. I felt that he was trying to disrespect me. And it wasn't wrong. And I would have documented that. And then every moment that he disrespected me afterwards, I would have documented that as well. Then I would have asked, "Hey, is there anything that I can do when a student is this disrespectful or disruptive to the environment?" And then, of course, I would have called his parents at minimum 3 times. before we get to the day where I'm called down to the office. Had I taken those steps, I would have not had that terrible first experience as a teacher. But, I am extremely thankful that I did not do any of those things because it set the tone for my teaching career. It taught me a very valuable lesson that I cannot handle bad behaving students by myself. I can't do that, and neither should you try. Listen, you're only paid one salary, and that one salary is for teaching. Anytime that you have to start babysitting, two things have to happen. You have to get an additional salary, and you have to get an additional salary, for crying out loud. All right. You should not have to babysit and teach. You're not getting paid for both. I say that to my students all the time. I say, hey, look, I'm not here to babysit. You should know how to sit down in a chair, take out a pencil or pen, and document instructional notes. You should know how to do that. If you can't do that, allow me to get your parents involved to tell you the exact same thing I can tell you that you seem to be ignoring. That's what I do all the time. I say it all the time. So, I would have taken those measures to protect myself, but I didn't know better. I didn't know that not contacting his parents and trying to do everything myself was setting myself up. See, that's what happens. If you're trying to address behaviors yourself, that's really cool. But there is someone who has the gate code to that student's behavior and knows exactly how to input it. It's their parents. I mean, who knows your students more than the people who made him or her? Think about that. And that is the mistake I made. And I say, you know what? In this episode, I'm going to share how I contact parents, when I should do it, etc., etc. All right. So listen, call parents immediately. All right. Never wait unless it's an emergency. What I mean by that is if you're in a classroom environment and there's issues that are, starting to become rather disruptive, and you're realizing that you can't teach unless something happens or changes, that's when you call parents. Okay, I call parents for the following. Anytime profanity is used, sometimes I'll give a warning. All right. Maybe on the second or third time, there is no warning. I call parents if I've addressed the student 3 times in terms of, hey, can you stop talking while I'm teaching? I've moved the student to a different place. That didn't work. I've done several things, maybe 2 to 3 different things, and they're not working. I stop my class and I call parents immediately. I never wait until the kids leave. I never wait till I'm at home, when I'm supposed to be giving my time to my family. No, I call right then and there while I'm on the clock. And let me tell you something. Have the student dial the number first. It's a beautiful thing. Have them dial the number, and what that does is it allows you to see whether or not they're going to stand on their behavior. What I mean by stand on their behavior is this student afraid to call their parent, or are they very bold about it? When you hand the phone to a student and say, hey, call your parents, please, you can tell right then and there, based on their response, if they are, I don't want to say it this way, but I'll say it. If they are in charge at home. Sometimes I'll encounter a student who's like, all right, here, give me the phone. And they'll dial the number, real fast. And they're like, hey, here you go. That tells me that there might be some issues at home where even the parent struggles with this child's behavior. It doesn't mean they're a bad parent. It just means that this child has very specific needs that might need some extra attention. But more often than not, this is what I experience. I don't know the number. Then they'll dial a number and I'll get someone on the phone. Hey, is this the parent of? No, this is the wrong number. Oh, I'm sorry. That's when you know that this child is simply acting out in that or your environment because they don't think that you would call their parent. They don't think that you'll go that far. And that's the best kind of student to have. A student who's just trying to get some likes, social media generation. They're just trying to get some likes on your teaching time. Not going to happen. So oftentimes I'll have the student dial the number themselves just to see where we're going with this. Okay. Sometimes while they're dialing the number, they'll be trying to explain to you why they didn't do anything wrong. Don't go for that. Or they'll say, can I get another chance? I'm sorry. See, even that works. But what you can't allow to happen is nothing. But here's the thing. You're giving them the option to dial the number, but you already have the number because you want to have the number ready in case the student stalls. This has happened more times than once. Okay, I'll call my parents. And then I'm like, okay, well, go ahead. I'm waiting. I'm ready to, to talk to an adult. Well, I was trying to tell you I don't want to talk to you anymore. I mean, at this particular point, there's no more or nothing more for us to discuss. I need to speak to a parent. All right. I don't want to go back and forth with a child. I say that all the time. Don't ever go back and forth with a child, especially when that child has been disruptive, especially if you're giving them chance after chance after chance. It's just nothing more for you and that child to talk about. At this point, you need to speak to an adult. And if they start to stall and they want to have these frequent conversations and explain to you that what you just saw didn't happen and what you just heard didn't happen, you know what? That's fine. May I have the phone, please? They give you the phone. You already have the number. Now you call. Something else happens because this is chess, not checkers. Sometimes the student will dial a number that's fake and they'll say, oh, she didn't answer. Then you say, call again. Call again. Oh, no, she didn't answer. Oh, perfect. Here's the number here. I'll dial the number. I'll get the parent on the phone and I'll say, hey, I just had your child contact you. And for whatever reason, they said that you didn't answer the phone. And then the parent will say, well, no one called my phone. I say, well, whose number is 304-773-5562? I don't know who numbers that. I don't know whose number that is. Well, that is the number your child just put into the phone. See, you're just creating a situation. It's like a game almost. And you're not trying to be evil or vindictive. You're trying to set the tone. And here's the thing. Once you do this with one student, a lot of students kind of figure it out. Like, I don't want to go down this road. So anyway, once you finally get the parent on the phone, here's exactly what I would say. I got to get in teacher mode. I'm on relax mode right now. Hold on. Let me flip the setting off. All right. Hello, how are you? Is this the guardian of so forth and so forth? Yes, I'm Mr. Knox. I am his art teacher. I do need some assistance. You got to say that. You got to say that. I need a little assistance because we're having some issues in the classroom. For whatever reason, and I'm not exactly sure, but so-and-so came into the classroom running. I did address that, and I just kind of asked him if he can calm down and relax. And I thought that would be the end of it, but maybe 5 minutes later, he used the F word. And then they'll say something like this, like, he used the what? Yes, ma'am, he used the F word. And I'm not exactly sure, and it's not the biggest deal in the world. But can you please get in his ear? You have to use that. Say this. Can you please get in her or his ear? All you're saying to the parent is, look, I'm not trying to get your child in trouble by reporting it to an administrator and all that kind of stuff. I just need some assistance. I'm not even, trying to take up too much of your time. Here's what took place. This is what they did, and I need some help. And not just any kind of help. I don't need you to address the situation when they get home. That doesn't serve me right now. I need you to address the situation right now. And could you please do so in real time? Meaning, I'm not going to say, all right, well, I'll have them call you in the last 5 minutes of class. No. First off, the entire class has stopped. Why? Because you're not at the helm of the class. Right now, you're dealing with one student. It's like being a shepherd. That's what teaching is like. It's like being a shepherd. And you got all your sheep going in one direction. And it's always that one sheep that wants to go and play by the edge. Well, you can't, you have to make sure these sheep are safe naturally. But you have to go and get this sheep from the edge because they're risking the entire operation. So if you're on the phone, you need to, communicate to that parent. I need assistance now because that sheep is going to go over that edge otherwise. So you say something like this. I was wondering if you can get in his ear, or I was wondering if you could talk to him about the things that I just said, because I would really appreciate it. And they'll say, oh, no problem, Mr. Knox. Let me speak to him right now. You give that student the phone and you watch them just melt in front of their classmates because, again, all the students are watching because you're occupied and you're babysitting right now. And remember what I said, you should never have to do two jobs. You should never have to teach and babysit. So any student that requires babysitting, guess what you do? You call their parents and allow the parents to babysit. That's what you do. Hey, for whatever reason, I would never come that aggressive, but I would say something to this effect. Ma'am, I've asked her to find a seat 7 times, if you can believe that, because I never call. I'm not a ticky-tack caller. I'll give the child an opportunity to fix the problem themselves because they know how I roll. They know that I'm not going to give too many warnings, and they never know if I'm going to stop what I'm doing in terms of giving warnings They never know if I'm going to stop giving them warnings on the first try, second try, third try, fifth try. It just depends on what I'm noticing from the student. Sometimes one cuss word is all it takes. I'm on the phone, done. Sometimes I'll give a warning. Now, I know it's not consistent, but what is consistent is if you don't chill, a parent will be on the phone, and you know that. That's consistent. So anyway, ma'am, I've asked her to find a seat 7 times. And on the seventh time, I asked her to go to the back of the class because she is really struggling with, following directions. And I think what's happening is she's trying to sit next to her friend. And this friend, for whatever reason, is not the best, the best option for her in the classroom space, because I think she prioritizes that friendship over her learning. So you're just setting up the scene, okay? Then I was wondering if you can speak to her, please, so that we can have a great class. See, what you're telling the parent and what you're communicating is, I need your assistance so that your child doesn't get in any further trouble. Can you please get in her ear so that we can have a smooth class? Oh, absolutely. She did what? That's how you know what you've said is effective. When they are like, she said what? She did what? Because most likely the child's behavior is extremely different from what they demonstrate in front of their parents. So you have to be a great communicator. Let me tell you 2 things you have to make sure you master as a teacher. You have to master observation and reporting. I can't stress that any clearer. You have to be a master observer and a master reporter. If you have not mastered those 2 operations, if you haven't gotten better at those 2 things, again, that is observing, you have to be on constant alert, and reporting, then you have some work to do. So as you're gathering up the information and or data of a child's behavior, I hope that you're reporting it in notes or in note form. Now, a lot of times I will correct the student's behavior verbally, but when I bring out a pad, they already know it's going into a different direction. Because what that means is you're doing so much that I won't be able to remember it should I need to report it to an administrator or a parent. So now I'm documenting everything you're saying, and I'm documenting everything you're doing. Because when I get on the phone with your parent, I don't want to be rambling. Because then you lose credibility. And it's easier for them to get on the phone and say, Mom, he's just tripping. And it kind of makes sense because you're not prepared. And that is translated to the parent. But when you get on that phone, yes, ma'am. So I'm not sure what's going on. He just came into the classroom. He's used the F word, the B word, and he hit a student on the arm. I'm not exactly sure what's happening, but I was wondering if you can get in his ear. That's my favorite. That's like my little catchphrase. I was wondering if you can get in his ear and redirect his behavior so that we can have a smooth class. Now, what parents don't like is when you come across like this. Well, he is not listening. He is not doing anything I told him to do. And he is not. It's like you're becoming like you're too emotional and you're yelling almost. And now the parent is going on defense. It's not even about what the child did. It's about them feeling like they need to protect their child because of how unprofessional you're coming across. But when you come across like this, yes, ma'am, how are you? This is Mr. Knox. You have to introduce yourself first. This is Mr. Knox, and you have to explain what subject you teach. This is Mr. Knox. I am your child's English teacher, and I was wondering if I can get a little assistance. For whatever reason, so-and-so has come into the classroom. He kicked over a chair, and he called a student a B word. And then as I was giving out instructions, because I did move him to the back after the B word, I was, again, not trying to call you, not trying to bother you. You have to come across sympathetic, like you're really trying. I didn't want to call you after the B word, so I did move him to the back so that he can be by himself and work in a space that's more peaceful. But for whatever reason, he started to yell at the board, or start to yell while I was giving out instructions. And, we had to stop the entire class. Is it possible that you can get in his ear? Is it possible that you can get into his ear, in his ear? I always say in his ear. Can you just get in his ear and, redirect his behavior? I'm trying not to get the administrators involved. I think that me, you, and him can handle this ourselves. You want to come across calm and as if you really need assistance. Okay? You really need assistance. Okay? So that's what I'm saying. And that's how I'm saying it. I think some things that I want to make sure I re-emphasize is you have to introduce yourself first. Here's what happens when you don't introduce yourself. Everything you said gets thrown out the window because they're going to say this. Who is this? Who is this? Because you did not properly introduce yourself. You have to eliminate all the things that the parent can latch onto and the things that the student can use to discredit you. And that is how you immediately discredit yourself, by not introducing yourself, saying hello, and giving them the opportunity to respond when you say hello. These are very rudimentary concepts. Hello, this is Mr. Knox from Drew Freeman. Am I speaking to the guardian of so-and-so? Wait. Yeah, this is him. Hey, how are you? I'm Mr. Knox. I am so-and-so's art teacher. I was wondering if I can get some assistance. That's how you set them up into listening mode. You disarm them and make them, less defensive. And now they're listening because you just stated, as their teacher, and you introduced yourself properly, you just explained to them that you need assistance. And now they want to find out what you need assistance with. And this is when you lay it out perfectly. Well, you want to sound concerned, because you are, technically. I'm not sure what's going on, but I did ask so-and-so to put the cell phone on silent, but she's playing rap lyrics from the cell phone. Make sure you're reporting accurately. Don't emphasize too much. Don't put too much sauce on it and spin it up and try to sell it. Don't sell anything. Just report. Once you become a master reporter, this part of your job becomes extremely easy. Reporting has nothing to do with emotion. It has nothing to do with feelings. It's just observing what you see, documenting what you see, and reporting it out. Once you learn how to do that, your job will be increasingly easier. Okay, so yes, she was playing music and the lyrics had curse words in it. I believe the D word was one of the words that came out. Yes, ma'am, the male genitalia. Always be professional. Always. Yes, ma'am, the male genitalia. But always be accurate in your reporting. I know that might be a little cringe to say your child is listening to lyrics with the D word and as in male genitalia. I know that seems very cringe, but you know what's even more cringe? For that child to be doing that in your classroom space. That's even more cringe, right? And once you explain that to the parent, the student will start to say, oh, snap. He actually went there. Yes. And you did it professionally. You didn't say the actual word. You didn't use profanity. You just reported what the child is doing in a way that is professional. What else can you do? All right. So the lyrics that she was listening to had the D word in it, and D word as in male genitalia. And it is incredibly disrespectful to the learning environment. I do need some assistance. If you can help me out. Is it possible that you can get in her ear? Don't steal my stuff. Don't steal my stuff. Is it possible that you can get in her ear and just redirect her behavior? Always use that. Can you redirect her behavior? Because you know what they're going to always say? Absolutely. She did what? That's what's going to happen. I mean, I'm talking about every single day I use this, and it works every single time. Anyway, be ready with behaviors and writing. I can't say that enough. Don't ramble. Don't get on this phone with this parent and not know what you want to say. This is why a pen and paper is still the greatest two tools a teacher can utilize. Make sure that everything is already documented and all you're doing is reading from a script. No emotion, no exaggeration, because the last thing you want to do is give the student an opportunity to say, "Mama, he lying. He just lying." No. Now, they'll still say that, but the way that you communicate it will definitely give the parent insight that their child is about to lie because the offense is so bad. And you'll be surprised. A lot of parents already know who their child is, and they've already heard these phone calls before in the past. All you are is the latest person to report it. So when they get on the phone and say he lying or she lying, the parent already knows that this is their child's behavior, because even though the parent doesn't see it, another teacher has already reported it. All right. Ask them to speak to the child in hopes of getting them on track. You have to ask the parent to speak to the child then and there. Now, there could be time restraints. There could be limitations. You might be in a time crunch. I don't know what your situation will be, but let me tell you something about good old Mr. Knox. I don't care what the scenario is. I really don't. I don't care what the scenario is. I will always make time to call a parent. Anytime I feel myself doing an extra job, which is babysitting, and I know I'm not getting paid 2 salaries, everything must stop. Everyone, stop what you're doing. You come to the phone. All right? Come to the phone immediately. I don't care what we're in the middle of doing. Okay? If we're not in the middle of praying, look, it can wait, because I'm not doing 2 jobs. I'm not babysitting and teaching. And that is the expectation that takes precedence in my classroom. Everyone already knows this. There's only so much that I can do before that man stops the entire class. You know what's terrifying for a student? When you stop an entire class for their behavior. It's terrifying. I know, because I've seen the reaction from my students, both in that moment and after the phone call. And when I say after the phone call, I mean immediately after and the following classes. It's like, you know what? I'm not going to try that again. That was very traumatic. And you're not trying to traumatize your students. What you're trying to do is set a tone that certain behaviors will not be tolerated in this environment. You're better off just waiting until the class is over. There's nothing wrong with that. I stand on that. Now, here's where you take your parent calling skills to the next level. You don't just call and report bad behaviors. Oh, that's rookie business. You have to also report missing homework assignments, report attendance and how many tardies they might have. And also report any assignments that are missing. Also report any overall classroom behaviors that you have concerns about. That is how you really shut it down, because now you start to get a nice narrative flowing. Okay, now it's no longer so-and-so is misbehaving in class. Now, no. So-and-so is tardy every class by 10 minutes. See, that now starts to give you narrative as to why they're misbehaving, because they're coming into class late. No, it's not just tardiness. This student is also missing 4 homework assignments, and that's when you get them. That's called checkmate, ladies and gentlemen. So wait, he told me he doesn't get any homework. When you hear that, I just want you to come back and like this video, because now you're on the right track. When you hear that, she said that she doesn't even have homework. Well, ma'am, I'm looking at the grade book right now. It shows that she's missing 4 homework assignments. And if you like, I can have her write these down. See, now you're going into a different level. It started with a phone call about them using the F word in class, but now it's becoming a lot more effective. And not only are you going to allow the parent to address their behavior and their language and their tardiness, but you're also going to help the student, because when they get home, that parent is going to address the fact that they have 4 missing homework assignments, which they can still do. You have to make sure that if you're going to report that they're missing something, it has to be something that they can still turn in, or else you're wasting everyone's time. Okay? Yes, there's 4 homework assignments that they're missing, and now that becomes the consequence at home. Okay? That becomes the consequence. When they walk in that door, it should be, here's 4 sheets of paper. Mr. Knox told me you're missing 4 assignments. Get to work. And you can't get your cell phone back until you knock out these 4 assignments. How about it? All right? Allow the student to speak to the parent. Incredibly important, because what happens in that moment is that student who had put on that big old mask for their class, trying to show that they can curse in front of adults, now they have to speak to their parent right in the middle of class. And you see this duality happen. On the phone, they're trying to be their real self, the one that their parents know, but they're also trying to keep their act together for the class. It's the most amazing thing. Sometimes I just grab popcorn and just watch them try to be 2 people at once. It's a beautiful thing, I tell you. Okay, they're trying to be 2 people at once, because now you're calling their bluff. They have to be this really, really good kid for their parent and this really, really bad kid for their peers. It's hilarious. I mean, it's not hilarious. Don't laugh. But inside, I do chuckle a bit, because it's amazing. And when they start to talk, that's when their cover is blown. Because, no, Mom, I didn't even mean this. I didn't say it. It was a mistake. That's when their peers realize, oh, my God, okay. All right. First off, they realize that this kid is not as big and bad as they appear. And 2, they realize they don't want that problem. They don't want to be next. All right. They don't want to be the next person having to shred their tough guy or tough girl or class clown persona. They don't want any parts of that. Okay. The next thing is move on. Once that child is on the phone with that parent, wait, because sometimes you just want to kind of hear what's being said. Again, observing, reporting. You want to hear what's being said. You want to hear how they address their parent, because, they could make up a story. They could try to include you, try to, discredit you, say something about. Just pay attention and listen. And you also don't want to teach while that's going on, unless there is, like I said, time restraints. Sometimes you have to teach while they're on the phone. Sometimes you have 2 parents you got to call at once. So a lot of times I'll wait for that one student to get off the phone and then call the next parent, or then go back to teaching. But once you get done with the whole phone call thing, move on. I can't stress that enough. Don't let your phone calls disrupt an entire hour or mod or period of class. Don't let that happen. You stop your class, and your phone calls should never last more than about 4 minutes if you do it effectively. All right. 1 minute is calling the parent and getting a person to answer. The second minute is reporting every behavior the child did. The third minute is them taking the phone from you, calling or speaking to their parent, trying to deflect and take the attention off their bad behavior. The fourth minute is there just in case of emergency, in case you have to get back on the phone to rehash a few points with the parents. After that fourth minute, you should be right back into the lesson, not wasting a cent or second more on bad behavior, because we don't have time for that. We're not going to sacrifice 95% of our class that's ready to learn for 5% or even less, 98% to 2%. We're not going to do that. That's not how it works. All right, be willing to call again if the behavior doesn't change. I can't tell you how many times I've hit students with a two-piece. And I don't mean with my fist. I mean with two phone calls back to back in the same class. Ma'am, I do apologize for the second call. After you got off the phone, he told his classmates that he wasn't going to get in trouble and that you don't care if he cursed. And he used the F word again. That's when you're top tier at that point, because you're setting a precedence. You're going against the evil forces in your classroom. I can't say that any clearer. When you're trying to impart your knowledge onto a group of children, that is the most beautiful thing you can do. You know what destroys that beauty? Bad behavior. It's so disrespectful. It's almost like, it's like expected, but it shouldn't be expected. It's nothing wrong with defending your class against poor behavior, because guess what? Now these students will not get the information they're supposed to have. Now that could also reflect poorly on you, because when they take an assessment, they don't do so well because of all the issues and conflicts that took place in the class. I am someone who takes that rather seriously. So I am going to defend my class against all bad behavior. And if I have to call your parents a second time in the same class, I will stop my class a second time. And I'll do it in the name of having a more peaceful classroom environment moving forward. All right, so let's talk about when to call. I would like to call, or I should say I call when there's profanity. I'll usually call on the third or fourth behavioral correction. A lot of times I'll try to protect the child from their own behavior. And here's how I do it. When kids come into my classroom, while I'm taking attendance, I look and see who's like just off. You can tell immediately. I look and see who sits next to each other, because I don't have assigned seating. I don't believe in it. I think that assigned seats are awesome, but I've learned that when you let the children pick their own seats, it's a beautiful thing, because you find out their true intentions. When you have assigned seats, what happens is you have these unplanned for disruptions or connections. You put these two students side by side thinking that they would be able to learn because they're not friends, but they develop a friendship and now they're stuck there for the entire school year or however long you have them. But when you have dynamic seating is what I'll call it, every class, the seats can change. What you find is that these students come in and they sit next to people that they want to feed off of in terms of energy. Well, guess what I'll do? I'll see that and say, "Excuse me, sir, you will not be allowed to sit there today. I need you to swap with this student." And it works brilliantly, because let's say that these two students are talking over here and there's another set of two students talking over here. Well, I'll just take one from over here, one from over there, and I swap them. And then now they're in two different areas with somebody who they don't really want to talk to. And that is one of the things that benefits to a quiet environment. I know it sounds very simple and maybe even rudimentary, but it works. And I'll do that before I call parents, because I can now say, "Ma'am, I moved his seat, and I've put him in 2 or 3 different places, and it's still not working for whatever reason. As I'm teaching, he has made it, a very strong point to interrupt the class." And I'll be honest with you, Mom, what he should be doing right now is taking notes, because I'm going over the lesson. And when you get on the phone with him, ask him what his homework is. I don't believe he knows, because as I was giving out homework, I saw him texting on his phone and talking to a friend beside him. You're setting up the picture. You're painting the picture. As the teacher, you have to set the tone and paint the picture that the parent can't see. Most likely, the parent is going to err on the side of caution as it relates to listening to someone else about their own child. So you have to paint the picture and allow the parent to be present inside the class via your reporting skills. Okay, so yes, I moved him 3 or 4 times, and moving him around has not worked, and this is an issue. Can you help me? Can you get in his ear and redirect his behavior? So I'll call over profanity. I'll also call, if I have to address a student 3 or 4 times, I'll call over disrespect. If I tell a student to put a phone up and they start disrespecting, you can't tell me what to do, or I'm going to do what I want to do. Or they play the cell phone again for a second time. Let's go. I'm ready to have some fun. Let's go. Go ahead and call your folks, please. Call your parents, please. All right. Anytime I'm giving out instruction, and that child is choosing to disrupt that instruction. I love to call parents for that, because let me tell you, I am not the type of teacher that is going to teach through disrespect. I am not the type of teacher that will teach when there is conversations happening in the corners, small conversations, I'm not doing it. When I'm teaching, when my mouth opens, every mouth should close. Let me tell you why, because I'm giving out information that is critical to the reason we're meeting together, right? It is not a power play. I'm not asking you to be quiet just so I can feel powerful. I'm asking you to be quiet because there's somebody in this classroom who wants to pass. There's somebody in this classroom who has parents who will not allow that child to carry a C or a B minus. They must bring home an A. I'm doing it for them. Everyone must be quiet for that student alone. Even if you don't want to pass the class, even if you don't like the class, even if you don't like me, even if you don't care about your grade, you must be quiet on the account of those students who do care. How about it? And that is the bare minimum in terms of respect that I require in my class. Now, the cool thing about my class is I don't police cell phones. Now, if you are someone who needs a pacifier, i.e. a cell phone to look at and text in order to be quiet, so be it. All right, I'm not going to police cell phones. They are amazing resources. And, if I'm going over something in class and you want to Google whoever Munch is while I'm talking about him, I think that's an amazing thing, as long as I don't hear the device. And another cool thing about my class is I pretty much allow students to talk because I think talking is a very essential and basic right. I allow students to talk as much as they like until I start. When I start talking, there's no more, passive conversations taking place. Because I don't talk unless I'm giving out very, very important information. All right. That being homework. I'm trying to figure out who is in class, attendance. I'm giving out answers to a quiz. So anytime my mouth opens, that means that some important information is about to be disseminated, and I need people to be quiet so that the people who care can hear that information. And I will not allow it to be any other way. So yes, I will call a parent over instructional disruptions. I absolutely will. Especially if I've given out warnings, 2 warnings. I've moved your seat. Let's get it. Let's do it. I'm ready. Get your parents on the phone. Okay, that's how it goes. Now, I hope that this episode helped shed light on what I do and why I do it. And I hope that you start to incorporate it into your style of teaching because it will help. That's all it's going to do. All right. Thank you for checking this out. If you found anything informative from this episode, you know what to do. Show some love and throw your main man a review, a like, a comment, subscription, all that cool stuff. I will see it and I do appreciate it. All right. Be safe out there. Peace.